participants room. It's great to see you. Hello, Elaine. How are you? Hi, Irene. Good to see you. Johanna, how are you doing? Marcus, good to see you too. Michelle, how are you? Natasha, lovely to see you. It's really always nice to see people when they come in. It's just a shame we can't actually see each other in person. Stuart, nice to see you. Thank you everybody for signing up to the what I call the GEMS survey briefing, the Global Employee Mobility Survey. It's great to have you all here. We've got 151 people signed up today, which is a fantastic turnout. For those of you who know how these work, hi Sabine. For those of you who know how these work, I am recording this. I will do the edit on this tomorrow. I'll send it out to you, all of you who've signed up first. So if you do need to drop off the call, you know, to take a call, don't worry, you can come back, and this will all be recorded for you. This is to me, it's been a real pleasure over the last few years to work with you, Steve. On, you know, I have to say, CERC as an organisation, your ability to conduct these really large-scale pieces of research is pretty well unrivaled in our industry, and it's been a real pleasure for EuRA to have been involved in that over the years. So I'm very much hoping this is going to be a preamble to some really interesting conversations we're going to have, hopefully in Malta as well. We will be going through again the results of this report. Hello, Heather. Nice to see you in here. We were just emailing. Certain things, just to say very quickly, I will send out the link to the report itself when I send you the recording link to the YouTube film, which will go up tomorrow or Friday. There is a charge, obviously, for this research. It is a very big piece of research, which, you know, I have to say, Steve, there were a lot of resources were put into this. So there is a charge for anybody who's here or who's signed up. There is a 20% discount. We will get that all sorted out for you so that you can download the whole thing. The reason we're doing this briefing today is so that you can get an overview of the not just the changes, but of the state of how people perceive mobility. So, I mean, again, Steve, you're going to go into the real nuts and bolts of this, but the sheer numbers of people who were asked to take part in this survey is phenomenal. I think it was over 10,000 people. It was done through Ipsos Mori, which, if you're not familiar, I know in the UK and in Canada, they are the largest polling organisation. So again, the data itself is very carefully constructed. The survey is very carefully constructed. The data is very carefully analysed. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting to go through some of the key things that came out of it. So I will interrupt every now and again. If you at all have any, hi Pauline, if you have a question at any time, please just put it in the chat box. I'll be moderating that throughout the session. There's loads of really interesting stuff to dive into here. So if something chimes with you and you think, oh, I want to know more about that, just put a note in that chat box and I will put that to Steve at an appropriate time. And I've got loads of comments myself. So anyway, Steve, over to you. It's really great to have you here. Thanks so much. I think this is the first that this large scale research has been done since 2017. Is that right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to chat with you, Dominic. I'm sorry, you can see people coming in. I don't see them on my screen, so I can't wave at people and say hello and the people that I've met at the different conferences over the years. But I think the survey and certainly the support that we've received from EuRA speaks volumes about the strength of the relationship between our two associations across the pond. You supported the survey in 2017. We've done other work together, and I think it's just a testament to the very strong relationship that exists between us. I think just referencing the Coalition of Associations for Global Mobility, there you go, Tat. I got it all done in one mouthful. And you know, I think, you know, just moving us along and trying to build this global network of people. Thanks, Magali. Of associations and committed people. You know, we talk a lot about the work that we do as groups, and it's the individual commitment and effort that makes that pushes the train down the track. And we certainly got that, and I do want to just say thanks again for the support that EuRA has given. I don't have any slides today. I hope that's okay. That was your suggestion, Dominic. Usually I have, tons of slides to put up so I can hide behind them. But today, I guess I'm going to try and share some of the reasons behind the report and some of the key findings. We started doing the report with Ipsos Public Research here in Canada in 2011. It was the first study. We actually did a study in 2010, but it was confined to Canadians willing to move into provincial. And then in 2011, we made the decision to go with a global study. So we repeated it in 2014, 2017. And then, of course, we had COVID. So we felt there was, not much to be gained doing the study during the COVID years. So once we got through COVID and things, started to return to normal or quasi-normal, we decided to do the report again in 2025. It is a significant undertaking, both from a financial perspective and also from our very limited resources as well. So that's why we're charging a nominal fee for the report. I will say just in case I don't mention this, but within the report package as well, there are interactive tools that you can access, which you can slice and dice the data based on demographics and all kinds of things. So we've spent a considerable amount of time developing that. The survey was conducted between February the 21st and March the 7th of 2025. So it was before many of the announcements and proclamations that were issued by the President of the United States. So we think some of the findings may have shifted, might have shifted had we conducted the survey a little bit later in the year. That said, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what people are looking for when they are relocating for employment. The survey covers 10,500 people across 19 countries, major industry groups, demographic groups, high wage, low wage, owners of organizations or owners of companies, senior executives, etc. So there's quite a lot of data available. And as you pointed out, Dom, we did use Ipsos, and so this was not CERC doing a poll. It is statistically based, and the findings have all been vetted and weighted appropriately by people way outside my pay band and understanding of how those statistical things work. The question I think we set out to understand is how do we get people to where the jobs are, and that's kind of important in today's world. By 2030, according to a study that was published by Korn Ferry in 2024, by 2030, there will be a shortage of about 85 million skilled workers around the globe. Now, I was looking at an article just this morning from Germany, their population is going to decline. I'm using Germany just because I happened to pick up this article this morning. But the German population is going to be will decline by about 6.3 million people by 2030. Germany already has a significant challenge in attracting highly skilled people. One of the solutions for the German economy right now is that they're looking at considering having people work past I think it's 66 in Germany is the retirement age. So they're looking at that as being one of the levers to alleviate their worker shortage. But in nearly all of the developed economies, and this includes the United States, Canada, Germany, the UK, Australia, France, Sweden, Italy, the list goes on. In nearly all of the developed economies, immigration and mobility will fuel workforce growth. And that is because fertility rates are in decline in pretty well every country, with the exception of countries in India, in Africa, and the Indian population continues to grow. So the biggest solution that economists are seeing to offset some of that is immigration and mobility. They will be a key part of the solution. There will be training programs, obviously, in countries, but the significant shortages are fueling this need for greater mobility and immigration. At the same time, we have regions, countries that are putting up barriers around immigration. Immigration is bad. We're seeing that certainly in many countries. We're seeing it particularly acutely in the United States and in other countries where immigrants are seen as coming in, taking jobs from locals and driving down labor rates. So those are some of the headwinds. So the question that we were trying to get to is, how do we get people to where the jobs are in a post-pandemic world? We think that things changed during the pandemic, and I think that the results of the survey somewhat bear that out. We know that employers offer supports and benefits to employees to relocate for employment, but are they aligned with the expectations of employees? And I think that's what we were trying, that's one thing that we were trying to reach through the survey. And while we saw a slight increase in the number of people that are willing to move, it was about 3%. It went from, I think, 45 to 47 or 48. We saw a shocking increase in the number of people that said, there is nothing that my employer can offer me that would make me move. That was a 12-point increase since 2017. That is that's a significant statistical shift in the data. So we also asked about location, which I can talk about a little bit. But the key message I think that we can take away from the session this morning is that relocation is no longer just about compensation. Employees want assurances, they want flexibility, and they want quality of life. And I think that's what shifted during the pandemic. It really reset us as people around those things. And then this means that human resources and mobility strategies, they need to shift towards building comprehensive support packages. So offering hybrid remote work options, ensuring family support, housing, schooling, travel, and embedding DEI principles. That was a new question that we inserted into the survey this year, was the importance of DEI when people were selecting the destination, their top destinations. I think policies will need to be more employee-centric, balancing the cost factors, obviously, finding ways to reduce costs in the process, with the factors that motivate mobility. What does that mean for a lot of the people in the audience today who are destination services providers, temporary housing, corporate housing providers? I see these findings as important opportunities for them, because the findings point to those kinds of supports that people are looking for. The importance of housing and flexibility, vitally important in the movement today. So why don't I stop there for a second and just see if there's any questions come in. Give me a break to stop talking for a moment.
That's a perfect moment. So first of all, anonymous attendee, is the call being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and I will send you the link to this entire thing if you do have to drop off. That's fine. Heather, thank you very much for your question. Steve, do we have a demographic breakdown around gender split and generational split of the participants?
Yes, we do. We do. Excellent. Can I share it with you this morning? No, I don't. It's just that I don't have it at my fingertips. But for the most part, I think it was about a 60-40 split for male female. An interesting thing, we found too that when you're talking about demographics, and it's a good question, that we found that younger people in that bracket of like 25 to 30, 34, I think was the cutoff, and older people were more inclined to move. Now that's intuitive in a way, right? Because you're either starting out in your career or but I think that 12% shift, pardon me, in the number of people that did not want to move, that's a significant piece.
To me, that's really interesting. I mean, I was making a heap of notes there, but just a couple of clarifications, because again, we talked about this when we spoke last week. When you're talking about hybrid options, you're talking about so even on assignment that there is still the opportunity to work from home, balanced with working from the office. Is that right?
Yeah. I thought so. If you're going to transfer me to New York, and I can only afford to live in a suburb, don't expect me to come into the office 3 days a week or 5 days a week, right? They really want to have that. They really want to have that flexibility. I'm going to try, as we're chatting, I'm going to look and see if I can answer the question a little bit more precisely in terms of that demographic question. So if I look distracted, it's because I'm just looking at my other screen.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you, and interestingly, Heather, you're on the call, and we were talking earlier via email about the fact that you were on a DEI panel when we were doing the much maligned online conferences that we did in 2020 and 2021. That's a very interesting one to me, Steve, because we've seen like quite a lot of erosion of the importance of DE&I, and yet that is still a very important thing for people wanting that as part of their employment focus. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think, we were chatting about this the other week, right? And I think that what we're seeing is that although the headlines might say, companies are abandoning their DE&I, and some of them are, and they're being pushed to because they're trying to get they're trying to obtain federal contracts in the United States and so on. But they're changing the language, but not changing their behavior, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? They're aligning with what the language of the day currently is, and trying to, make sure that their policies and so on reflect that language, but their practices haven't really changed. I think that's what I'm reading in the tea leaves. The one thing I have seen, though, is that a lot of companies are abandoning the positions in their organizations of chief D&I officer and D&I member on the board and so on, just because I think those are lightning rods. But the practices have not necessarily changed. I would say certainly not here. I can't speak entirely to what's happening in other countries, but pardon me, certainly here in Canada, there's remains a very strong corporate commitment to D&I in the workplace. Yeah.
If anybody has any comments about anything that we're discussing, please put them in the chat. James, that is a very good question. Thank you very much. So James asks, does that 12% increase of employees saying that there's nothing their employer can offer them to move, does that come some way to explaining the softening of volumes throughout this year? Or is that more to do with geopolitical?
That's a great question, James. Thank you. I think we'll have, wait and see on that. That's it could be an influence on the softening of volumes. Yes. Others would argue that the softening of volumes is brought about because of the uncertain business climate today. But I do think that the point in all of this is you've got to get it right. You've got to get it right, and you've got to get it right the first time. So if a corporate if a corporation is looking at relocating a senior person or a top, it's usually these are people that they are their rainmakers. They are the people that fulfill those critical skills. Better make sure that you get it right the first time out, because saving a few bucks on temporary accommodations or cutting back on school search or apartment hunting or all those things, they undermine the success of a relocation. Even in we'll be publishing another report this week. It's our 2025 Employee Relocation Policy Survey, which is a survey that we conduct of businesses, corporations, about what relocation policies they have in their organizations. And consistently, one of the questions that we ask is, why are relocations decline? Why do employees decline relocations? And I've been doing this for a number of years, as you know, and number one is always family issues, which comes back down to what we were just chatting about, schools, housing, how do I get settled into the new community? And those are really important things. And just to reinforce that point, here in Canada, we've got a phenomenon. We call it the leaky bucket. So we bring lots of immigrants in, but we lose about 20% of them after 5 or 6 years, and it's because they do not integrate into the community successfully. That's one of the key reasons that they end up leaving. So I can't stress enough how important the support services are for for families, particularly families. It's a little easier if you've got, a single fellow, a single woman, but particularly for families, and you're trying to get them settled.
Mhm. I mean, those statistics haven't changed in, the 25 years that I've been in this industry. It's still the statistic of the amount of assignments that fail because of lack of ability to integrate into the host culture is phenomenally huge, and still intercultural education and intercultural settlement is still considered to be a soft topic. Anyway, we're moving on. A couple of questions that have come through. Heather, very good point. I'm seeing a move towards shaping inclusive cultures rather than DEI initiatives, exactly as you were saying, Steve. A more reframing towards a work environment that's psychologically safe. And James, thank you. He says, I guess what you're saying now ties into the gap between relocation policy and a company's mission and values. I'm guessing as it ever was. I mean, you're right, James, those mission and values, if you're not feeling supported by your employer and given, assurances, especially post-COVID, we saw people leave in the space of a week, in every major territory across North America, Europe, Asia, in the world. So very, very, very interesting stuff. I mean, there's an awful lot of detail in the report to get to. Thank you for this beneficial webinar. Thank you, sir. That's very kind of you to say. Steve, tying back into what you were saying, one of the things that I found really interesting in the report was which countries were more likely to have employees who were more likely to move and which countries people are still wanting to go to. Do you want to have a...
Yeah, the people that were most likely wanting to move, first off, were in South Africa and South American jurisdictions.
Interesting.
Which was it is interesting because they are suffering demographic shocks of their own. But I think I think one of the reasons behind that, one of the several reasons behind that is when we looked at political stability, it's like 75% of people are, if they're going to move, they're looking for political stability. So you look at some of those countries, and that's probably a reason why. In terms of countries to relocate to, I think that was the second part of your question, right? Yeah. So we asked them first choice, second choice, third choice. And we were a little bit surprised by two of the results. But anyhow, the first choice was the United States. And that's down five points since 2017, which is a significant drop. And I've done a number of these briefings before, and people have said, well, if you did that study today, do you think the results would be the same? And my answer is probably pretty close to that. And that's because the United States is still seen as, a top destination in terms of earnings, affordability for housing, certainly their tax system. We produce here, just close to where I live, we produce a lot of STEM graduates from our two universities that are located here in Waterloo. And I was reading yesterday that 80% of the graduates will still go to the United States for employment, and it's a direct consequence. Yeah, a direct consequence of I can make more money in Silicon Valley than I can make probably in 3 or 4 years here in Canada. So it's still viewed that way, despite despite some of the political tensions and challenges. Switzerland, Tad, rose to number 2. It was up 2 points from 2017. The UK was tied at 18%. It was down 1% from last time. Canada took in 4th spot and we were pretty much tied with Spain at 18%. And that's a drop of 4 percentage points for Canada. That's a significant drop. And we attribute that to the government's tightening on our immigration laws. We look at that statistic and say, Canada's it kind of lost its brand on the international market for a number of reasons, not just immigration, but also they put up a number of factors around housing requirements and so on for foreigners.
Yeah. Mm.
The big surprise for us was Australia. Australia consistently in 2011, 14, 17 ranked in the top 4 countries. And now it dropped 6% from 19% down to 13%. So some interesting factors in there in terms of the countries.
That is fascinating to me on many levels. I think, again, when we had this conversation 7 years ago after the 2017 report results came out, and I remember distinctly, at that point, again, you were on the North American Free Trade Association board, and you were saying, and Canada was saying that Canada is open. If you have skills, we want you, and that's really shifted. And I think, is that also pretty similar for Australia as well?
It is similar for Australia, but it's a significant drop. From always being in the 4th one.
Right.
To
not. Some very interesting comments just coming through in the chat.
I can see them. Some of these are getting political, so we said we weren't going to do that.
But Rene, thank you very much. As a South African, I would say it's partially political, but more around job opportunities and international experience. Have surplus of talent and a higher unemployment rate. Again, very interesting point. Sabine says about Switzerland, yes, as does Tad. And Rene, the amount of South Africans coming back is high at the moment, and that's around better lifestyle. To Steve's earlier point on seeking a better lifestyle. Dominic asks, what about Germany?
Good question, Dominic. And I saw your note come in, so I flipped to page 38 of the report. And Germany actually dropped 4 points from 2017. It's now tied with Australia, just ahead of Japan. And I don't want to opine as to why that is, because Germany certainly is trying to find ways to attract skilled labor. Could be a combination of language, housing affordability. These are great questions, and
they really are. And again,
they are, because you can, and they're the kind of questions that if I could keep my data analyst employed, could afford to keep my data analyst employed, these are questions that he could certainly drill down into. And I'm using that as just an example of how rich this data is, right? The person from South Africa talked about, is it job opportunities and lifestyles? We've got that kind of data in the report.
Well, absolutely. Couple of interesting comments. Sabine mentions also, it means that people don't understand how difficult it is to get a work permit in Switzerland. And that's absolutely true. But again, this is where, this research feeds so well into what our industry does, because without that expertise, especially in terms of immigration compliance, get that wrong and the whole thing falls apart immediately. So again, that's key. Mima asks, what about the UK? I think still very much in the top 5.
It's still it is tied with Switzerland. It's tied with Switzerland, Canada at 18%, and then it's followed closely by Spain at 17%.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, very interesting. So yeah, I when we were talking about again the enthusiasm of people from certain countries to want to move, there were 2 things that came out for me in that the 2 nations least willing to be moved by their employment were, I will let you talk about that. It was, well, I can say it because I wrote it down. It's the Netherlands and Japan,
Yes,
which I
sorry,
found,
drawing a blank there. Yes.
no, I found that intensely interesting. I mean, do you have any? I mean, I'm thinking about the Netherlands. It consistently, along with Finland, Denmark, ranks as one of the highest quality of life places to live in the world, which is very interesting. For me, looking at that data and going back to Japan and thinking about my colleagues in Japan, there's a cultural aspect to a lot of this as well, I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think the Netherlands, I think is people don't want to move from the Netherlands. They're less likely to choose to move out of the Netherlands, and I think that speaks to the quality of life, their openness to diversity. It's a more social way of life. And I think people value that. So Japan, I think it's more cultural, yes, definitely. But by the same token, 12% of the respondents to the survey said that they would move to Japan.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's important too. If there's any, are there any other questions? Because okay. So what I can do, because a lot of the people on the call today are based in Europe, is I thought what we could do is give you a little bit of a flavor in terms of how countries in Europe, and we can put all this into a briefing note for you. But some of the key takeaways from the European findings. So family connection is really important. So that includes employer paid travel for families, visits, a number of visits continues to be a top relocation motivator, with an average of about 64%. Compared to globally, though, it's 5% lower. And I think that's a geographic issue. Like, it's a lot easier for you to go home 3 times, let's say, if you're in Europe, if you're from the UK or from Germany and you're working in either country, it's pretty easy to almost commute between them. Italy, 71%, Spain, 67%. The Netherlands, 49%. So again, they really don't want to, they don't really like to move. Housing expectations, that increased. This is an interesting thing. And I wanted to point it out for those who are providing temporary housing in the EU. That increased 15 points since 2017. So when I asked how important is corporate housing to you, or housing provided by your employer during your relocation, how important is that to you? It increased from 48% to 63% in 2025. A little bit lower than the global average, but significant, 3 points lower than the global average. So it's a significant reflection on the importance of housing for immediate stability. That's settling in when people relocate for employment. Flexibility. We were chatting about the importance of flexibility, Dominic. 65% globally, that is important to them. 59% in Europe versus Spain, 69%, Italy, 66%. So again, the flexibility, the ability to work in a hybrid remote location is important. Strong DE&I, 69%, across all countries in Europe versus globally 74%. The UK is 73%, so very close to the global average. And then in terms of destinations, when we ask people what was important about the destination, not necessarily about what the company could offer, healthcare was 82%. Political stability was 75%. Language and cultural acclimatization, 79%, and DE&I 78%. So again, this just completes that picture that employee-centric is really important. It's the soft things. It's not just compensation. It's not just the money. And when we were doing the surveys in previous years, we were looking at more about the compensation packages that were packaged. My apologies for the people in Greece. I don't think we included Greece in the survey. We had a limited number of countries that we could include, and I'm not sure we included Greece.
Interesting question from Heather. Thank you very much for that. What was the biggest surprise from the data overall? I know what mine was. What was yours, Steve?
I think that 12% shift.
Me too.
I think Heather, thanks for the question. I think it validated what we thought, that things did change during the pandemic, and they changed.
Yeah.
I think they changed big time. The genie was out of the bottle, and people got this taste of hybrid work and, spending more time with my children. Am I going to commute 3 or 4 days a week to, from Toronto to New York? Or I think that, to me, that was the biggest finding.
I agree. And I think also, just going back to COVID, from my point of view, when I was reading through this and when we were talking before as well, those 3 very high indicators of it's not just about comp and bends, it's about health, it's about language and culture, it's about DE&I. Those statistics are still extremely high. And I do wonder if that is also to do with the fact that, during the pandemic, when people, were rushing to get back to country of origin because they didn't know how a health system was going to cope, or how the culture was going to cope with the lockdown. All of those things were completely new.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Like I said at the beginning, and the time's going to tell, but I think it was a significant reset in terms of people's values, and the economy is not that. The economy is struggling on a global level right now, and so the pendulum has swung a little bit more in favor of employers, and people are being returned into the office. But there's a lot of people kicking and screaming during that process. I don't think everybody's jumping up and down and saying, "Wow, this is great." We're commuting back to the offices. But employers are gonna. That's a different story. I mean, what we're talking about here is, would you move for employment? I think there's a question around that.
I was going to say, James just asked, curious about the demographic. Is there data on the appetite for self-led relocations without employee support? Not in this survey.
No, the question. Thanks, James. The question was, if your employer gave you a 5% raise, guaranteed your employment for 2 years, how likely would it be that you would move to another country? And 1 in 2 people said, "There's nothing my employer can do for me to take that move." Which brings me back to the point I made earlier, that if you've got 1 in 2 people that are going to do it, you got to make sure that you get it right.
Absolutely, absolutely, where it's demand led. But interestingly, James, I read an article. I wish I could remember where. I think it was came through on my newsfeed. I think it might have even been Time Out, about self-led relocations without employer support. It wasn't necessarily about the numbers of those types of relocations. It was where people were going on self-led relocations. And
Yeah.
interestingly, the data in this correlates quite strongly with the data about where people would want to live, and it's about quality of life. Although I think Asia came much higher necessarily than the employer-led. It was Thailand was very high, for example. Very interesting question from Chris. Is there any discussion about people moving to Ukraine?
Not in this report.
No.
No.
Does anybody have any specific questions? Please go ahead and put them in the chat box. We've covered most of the sort of headline topics that I wanted to talk about. I was just wondering if I've got anything else on my list. The quality of life, that was all the stuff that I found was really interesting, that really no matter, what is offered in terms of packages, it's those quality of life issues that are coming higher than before. When you do an executive summary, actually there is an executive summary to be on the EuRA website, but I will flesh that out a bit on the back of this. Yes, absolutely, good question.
Good.
Steve, anything else that you want to just bring to the attention of the group before we ask the final question?
No, I think I just want to stress that I do see these findings, and I said it during the conference in Zagreb earlier this year, is that I do see that there's a lot of opportunities for people in our industry, whether you're in immigration, destination services, corporate housing. I do think that there's a great opportunity to impress upon clients the need to focus on these issues, because this can make or break a successful relocation. And it's okay for you to say that, but now there's actually data that backs that up. And I think that's my message, is that we've got very good data to secure this. Okay, 2 questions. I see 10,500 people. The survey was conducted between February the 21st and March the 7th. Yeah. The other thing I would suggest to people is good resources to follow us on LinkedIn. We're constantly putting up the data and reports, not just by CERC, but other organizations, and some very good reading on these topics. So I'd encourage you to do that, carry on the conversation there with us. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share this snippet, if you will, of information during the session today.
Yeah, no, thank you. I obviously I follow CERC. Just go to LinkedIn and do that. It's you do have some amazing data that comes through. And Claire, it was 10,100 people were surveyed in total across the Ipsos Mori survey. Yeah, and like I say, I will send out the edited recording to today's session, along with the link for you to buy the absolute full report and the executive summary that Steve, you summed up the report with. I'll send that out as well. And as I say, I will have the opportunity to discuss this again and again delve a bit deeper when we are in Malta. So again, just a quick plug. If anybody who is signed up for the Malta conference does wish to speak in one of the sessions, the theme of the conference is something which should be imprinted on my brain, but I'm still having to look at. The theme for the conference is driving growth, diversification, partnerships, and collaboration. If you have anything that you'd like to contribute on that theme, please go to the EuRA website. There is a link for you to fill out a speaker form, and with all of the details of the various sessions that are going to be held. So we would love to have you involved. If you've got something to say, that would be great. Steve, I find this fascinating. As Renee said, data is king. This is great data from the point of view, especially, and again, we're going to talk about this in depth in Malta, for those providers who work at a level whereby they can be of influence on a policy level to their clients. This data is really key, really key. So thank you everybody for taking part today. Thank you for all of your thank yous. Data is king,
Yeah.
absolutely. Ivona, Renee is right. Yep, so please do have a look at the executive summary. I will send the link to be able to purchase the report itself, and there will be a 20% discount. Steve, I really, really enjoy doing these kind of researches with you. I'm so pleased that you and CELC as an organization have such expertise in this matter, and we will continue to support the work that you do because it is awesome. So thank you everybody for joining today.
Okay.
Thank you, Mina, thank you, Michelle, thank you, Sabine, thank you, Dalina, thank you, Johanna. Great to see you all. I will send that recording. I'll try and get that edited tomorrow, so you'll either get it tomorrow or Friday, along with the link. And Steve, I will look forward to seeing you. I'm sorry I won't see you in Salt Lake City, but I will see you in Malta. See you there.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
ever so much, Steve. Great to see you.
Okay.
Thanks
Take
everyone
care.
for joining.
Cheerio.